Liquid star jungler ready for an interview to wrap up that series.
Thank you very much, guys. And speaking of wrapping up, you guys on this stage yesterday played for more time than both sets today. But obviously a much more decisive victory, especially in the last game. Tell me how you feel after this basically undefeated weekend.
I felt really happy about the Cloud9 games because, yeah, our mental fortitude was tested a lot because of like the length of the games and the remake and stuff. But I'm really disappointed in myself, particularly this set. But really proud of my teammates for picking up like my slack.
I did notice in the first game, after you guys won on the Gragas game, you actually left the stage fairly quickly. Do you want to talk about like how you were able to bounce back in game two because you had a pretty dominating Graves performance after maybe more of a disappointing Gragas?
I don't really know what was up today, but like the first game was probably like one of my, if not the worst performance of like my career playing this game professionally, and I was like really disappointed in myself. But I had to, yeah, I'm like the team captain leader, so I have to pull it back, and yeah, I performed on Graves.
It's interesting you say that because many people would love if their worst performance was stealing an Elder Drake in a pivotal moment in the game and still making some large picks at the end of it. Maybe going back to that game one a little bit more, how did you, as the leader of the team, kind of keep the team on the same page? Because it was kind of a miraculous win. You kept getting a lot of picks. You had the Elder Drake steal. Talk to me about how you kept your mentality up and the mentality of the team up during that game one.
Well, the only reason that game was close is because I kind of faltered in the shot calling that I normally do, where I didn't call for our 1-3-1 sooner when our trundle was pretty unbeatable. And then later in the game, we realized we can't walk into Victor Rumble comp and we can't like 5v5 them. So we called for 1-3-1, and then at the end of the game, after I think our trundle 1-for-1'd or something, and then we sat in the top bush like above wraiths. I called for that, and then yeah, it was just I even though I was extremely like on tilt and upset at myself and disappointed in my own play, I still have to like try and make us win.
Yeah, and you were able to do that. Also, to talk about Lorlo a little bit, oftentimes he gets under the radar, especially with Piglet coming out of lineup and Fabi coming in. They're saying it's like this Dardoch Phoenix show. But Lorlo this series was spectacular. Do you want to talk about his play a little bit and his progression as a player?
Honestly, I think yeah, people don't really respect Lorlo a lot, but yeah, he's like demanding respect now. He's improved a lot as a player, and now that we are understanding more 1-3-1 concepts, that he's getting a lot more time to shine instead of just being put on like tanks all day. So I think yeah, he's definitely going to be one of the best top laners in NA.
Awesome. And final question for you. Had a great week this week, but you go against one of your biggest rivals, I feel like, in Immortals last week, knocking you in the third place game and also beating you already this year. How are you going to prepare for that matchup and how do you think it's going to go?
Honestly, we've improved so much from when we played Immortals. So I mean, we always come into those games confident. And we always get slapped down, but hopefully it changes this time.
Yeah, well, confidence once again. Good luck, Dardoch. Congratulations on the week now. And let's send it over to the desk to close out the week. Day. Tomorrow we still have games.
Thank you very much, Chad. That little caveat at the end. I love it. A confident Dardoch, but again, this is the time when it's deserved, right? They're on their track back to being a top tier team. They're now tied for fourth with their win over EnVy today and their victory over Cloud9 yesterday, beating these two teams that were above them in the standings. So fantastic showing from them this week in particular. But all in all, upward trends for this team.
And I think it's a lot to do with kind of how the meta is progressing and their willingness to adapt to it. You heard that Lorlo is improving a ton, but it's also kind of more towards his style. He was never really a tank player.
Right.
People always knew him from his solo queue, Fioras and Rivens, and to have him on things, the more competitive versions of those with Aurelia or something, or Trundle. But to be able to have the ability to take over a game if he's having a good game, as opposed to just CC bot, you get to see that that's more his play style.
Right, and as we see the champion select on our screen right now, we have that Aurelia picked into the Shen, which we had some reservations about, but there wasn't much of a better option, especially with the Trundle being banned away. More importantly, though, the picks that I want to look at are the Morgana pickup by EnVy, the big thing that I don't agree with there, just because the likes of Karma still on the board.
Right, and I think it suits their team comp much better. I think the problem that EnVy might have ran into there was they tunneled on the Braum pick on the side of Team Liquid, and they went with what's kind of considered a traditional kind of counter in Morgana, but when you have two immobile carries, you want the speed up from Karma to get them in and out. You already have enough engage with the Shen, Rek'Sai, Ashe that you don't really need the follow-up binding or anything like that,
Right.
And I think it was just tunneling a little too hard on the Braum and not enough on what would be best for their team.
Yeah, exactly. So again, some Champions League stuff that we've been back and forth with EnVy, and sometimes they look great in Champions League, sometimes they don't. So maybe they still got some stuff to figure out there when it comes to meta. Team Liquid, though, happy to play seemingly everything, right? We've now seen, for example, Dardoch on the likes of Olaf, Rek'Sai, Gragas, to the Graves, to the Nidalees. So very diverse champion pools for these guys. We've seen Lorlo still play the tanks and the Shens and whatnot, but also play these more carry-oriented champions. So just as the split is developing, I feel more and more that this roster, this squad, is giving allowances to Loco Doco in that champ select to really craft interesting team comps.
Right, I think a lot of it comes down to mid lane too. Phoenix is basically playing all the top tiers as well as like, you know, the A tiers and some like more fringy picks like the LeBlanc. So there's nothing that is really foreign to this team in terms of what they want to play. Even Fabi, if you stick him on Lucian, that was like his most played champion. He was basically the carry at TLA for a lot of games. And so if it does return to that style, you think that they're fine if he needs to play that for a game or two. So they seem very comfortable in a lot of different facets.
All right, I want to jump into some gameplay. 8:30 into the game, Infernal Drake skirmish. That all-important Infernal Drake that everybody wants. So early fights around this objective for these teams in a very extended encounter here.
Yeah, it's really sad for Hakuho there to have his shield broken by the Jhin trap just as the root comes over the place. So he gets CC'd up, and then Phoenix has a great flash engage here to get Laud, picks up Hakuho on the side, and Team Liquid is able to win this pretty convincingly, 3-0. But what ends up happening is they want to finish this Infernal. They know how strong it is, and despite not being the healthiest and death timers being really short, they try and force it again. And so EnVy is able to come back in for a re-engage here, and they're going to pick up a couple kills.
Yeah, well, we'll just watch this play out as the TP comes in from Lorlo, or no, rather from Seraph on that Shen. Nice little taunt there. Going to pick up some kills with the AoE damage from the Victor. And I think that may have caught some people by surprise.
Yeah, it's the kind of classic TL over-aggression. I think that's what kind of holds them back from really breaking into like the top two. That's the kind of thing that you don't, you know, Immortals oversteps a little bit, but usually not this drastically. This could be a very big turning point in the game where you give up all the kills you just got and an Infernal Drake.
Yeah.
It's very concerning, but they were able to play the rest of the game out pretty well.
It's kind of, you know, that's the thing about Team Liquid's play styles. They're very ham. They're going to keep going. The way that, even when they're losing, right, it's exciting to watch because even when Team Liquid's losing, they say, no, if we're going to lose hard because we're going to be making plays to try and get back in. Now, they might not work, but if they do, great. And they're not going to just slow bleed. And this is just another example. They're not necessarily behind. In fact, they're ahead at this point, but they're going to try and press their advantages so far that sometimes it can come back to bite them.
I think the concern is what you heard from Dardoch is not even just when he's tilted, but just sometimes they don't know the right play. And we kind of saw in game one, they needed to swap out of that when they didn't have TP advantage and just accept that they need to go for turret trades at that point. We saw Immortals do that on the other series when they had a disadvantage. They were like, all right, screw it, let's go for turrets. Team Liquid doesn't make that adaptation, and so when they play super aggressive like Immortals, but they're not quite up to the game knowledge level, and that's the concern.
Right, but the recognition seems to be there, so we'll see if over the coming weeks they can get to the point where they're making those realizations in-game, not post-game. Right? That's the most important part. Another quick replay, 22 minutes into the game, we're going back towards the Dragon. Liquid's going to pick up an ace here, or rather starting in the mid lane. But Liquid's going to pick up an ace here off of an EnVy engage. Right,
so this is the time where EnVy's trying to make aggressive. They start that CC chain up onto Fabi, and even though he like pops right away, Dardoch is just soloing the mid laner on his own. Phoenix is melting the back line, and Lorlo comes in as well. And now you kind of see EnVy surrounded on all sides. Phoenix is going to kite this out, but the Bash Bros of Lorlo and Dardoch are here, and they're able to basically clean up the rest of the fight, and ends up being an ace. And this is kind of why Team Liquid is so good, is they do fight extremely well. It's just which one should they go for. So like you would think, you know, oh, 80 carry insta-gibbed off a chain CC, great. And then Dardoch's like, nope, we're going to carry this fight still. So
yeah, I mean, it's smart target selection, right? They can't necessarily help out Fabi, but that's okay. They're, you know, the opposing mid laner is vulnerable. Let's make sure we dive onto him, at least make the trade one carry for one carry, and then we'll win out the fight because we have more consistent DPS from that point onward with the Graves as a jungler. Player of the game, going to go to Dardoch. I run out of things to say about this guy because I feel like we give him. I feel like we give him player of the game quite often because he's so good. I mean, and we heard it in the interview. Like, not only is he a good player mechanically, individually is he a good player, but he's kind of morphing into this leader very well, right? And as a young guy who has a lot of confidence, he's still finding those moments where he needs to be the calming voice or the focusing voice for the team.
Right, he's got a great future ahead of him considering this is, his rookie season. It's his second split, but people will just improve. Hopefully, he gets more even-keeled in a sense because he can still, as he even said in Game 1, was tilted off his own bad play. What the great players really do is they don't let that get to them.
Right.
Keep taking the shots, as you often hear, and, don't worry about the misses.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that he can get hung up on right now, but when he's firing and hitting, he gets pretty hot like that last game. He kind of took over and soloed some people out.
Exactly. So that's this series in particular for Team Liquid, having taken down EnVy, who was right above them in the standings. Same thing beating Cloud9 yesterday. I want to now look at Team Liquid in this, the grander scheme of the league itself, right? Because Freak and I had a conversation yesterday about, well, is Team Liquid, can we comfortably call them our third place team right now? What is your thought there? And it's okay, the answer is no. I'm just proposing the question because, given the way that the earlier weeks of the split had played out, it seemed as though most of the teams were relatively where they deserved to be. And then here's Team Liquid with this roster coming in and just kind of negating all that, smashing all those ideals.
Right, I thought C9 would have stayed over them, and after that loss, you have to wonder if C9 really is the third solid team. But I think one thing that's so interesting is just the matchups. It's not so binary as to be this guy will beat this guy, this guy will beat that.
Yeah.
Right, I think TL has certain style things that they do that can be hard for some teams. They're very aggressive, and when you meet that kind of aggression, you have like one or two options, which is like slow down, try and absorb it, and then like go from there, and the other ones match it and just go over the top.
Right.
And I think you'll see TSM and IMT are teams that will go over the top with them and be better at it. Whereas a team like C9 kind of falls somewhere in the middle, and they might lose to a Team Liquid. And so as the playoffs near, I think it's not as simple as, well, C9 is the third seed, they should beat Team Liquid. It's like, well, they might have a better chance for TSM and Immortals, but not against Team Liquid maybe. And it's maybe that kind of matchup thing you need to worry about.
Well, that just makes positioning for playoffs even more interesting, as you don't want to get seeded into a stylistic mismatch that's going to put you at a disadvantage. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, I'll be very curious to see how teams are jockeying for position at the later half of the split. Now, though, it's time to check in on some of your call-outs for LCS big plays. First up, at RM Kaufman 13 was watching TSM take down the win earlier today when he tweeted that Bjergsen gold card. Let's see the Bjerg King's golden moment.
Now Pyrian gonna look. He's waiting for the gold card to expire.
Oh!
What? How did he see him? They saw him dash. They saw the beginning of the dash into the brush.
Wow.
So he's like, you know what? He's still in here. Wait, go.
I absolutely love that. You can, and in the replay, seeing the little point from the distortion, back where it remains, where he could hop back to. Just great awareness on the mini map to know that this is a play we can make.
Yeah, it's just the benefit of having such an aware team. Like you look at that play and you're like, what? How did that even happen? You really have to go back and rewatch it. And sometimes that actually happens a lot with TSM games, where I'm like, how exactly did they reach that decision?
Right.
They seem to just be more aware of what's happening on the map, and Bjergsen himself is one of the best players for that.
It's amazing what checking your mini-map will do for you, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, Aegis Please, who is watching NALCS 1, says, fantastic four-man ult by Aphromoo. Oh my, that was beautiful. Let's take a look.
One skill picked up already by Xfinity. Now Huhi in the front line as well. A nice knockup goes out of the Bard. Oh! Four-man temper fate and temper your expectations energy, because you're all going down. Another 3 kills come through. Only OQ is alive.
Trundle's no push. Trundle.
Get the heal.
I'm gonna go in. Come on.
Trundle.
Carmen push. We can do better. Oh, He's no push.
So that was a four-man ult. He had a couple three-man ults in that game. Just absolutely stellar play on Bard. We've come to expect that from Aphromoo. Next up, and finally, at Le Foxat, called out another big objective swipe, saying Dardoch stealing the Elder Dragon in Team Liquid versus EnVy won them the game for sure. I don't think anyone can argue with that. Let's look at this smooth move.
Jin is such a sitting duck. Can Dardoch steal it? Okay, barrels in. Oh, he got it! He does die, but it's worth it. Lola's still doing damage in the top lane. My God!
Keep going top. We're good. Strangle for still, I guess.
I got him.
Nice. We can back up.
We can.
Yeah, actually, we can get recalls.
I mean,
Where's the excitement? It's like,
right.
I got it. We
Well,
can back off.
it's because Kobe and Pastry took all of the
they
energy.
sucked all the energy themselves.
But I mean, I think that was such a crucial moment only because when you look at the amount of damage that was on EnVy's team comp there, especially in the 5v5 with the Rumble and the Victor, we heard Dardoch mention it in the interview himself. We realized we couldn't fight this team straight up anymore. But to take that Elder Dragon away, right, nerf their damage or disallow them from having it, and then in the process increasing your damage was so key for them to be able to close out that game.
Really helps Trundle get through turrets too. So with that being your last victory condition, basically, to have him that little leg up and dueling people as well as taking the objective is super important.
Absolutely. Well, some big plays today. Remember, you can use Twitter during the broadcast to tell the world about your favorite highlights from the day of LCS action using that hashtag LCS Big Plays. Now, though, for a glimpse of the league standings following the conclusion of our Saturday matches, first, second, and third place stay locked in with TSM Immortals and Cloud9. Liquid and EnVy now draw even in fourth, with CLG and Apex tied in sixth ahead of those bottom teams. Now, for a preview of the matches coming your way tomorrow on NALCS 1, CLG and TSM lock horns in the Battle Arena in a match you will not want to miss. And be sure to tune into NALCS 2 for our match of the week. Tomorrow afternoon, Immortals defend their second place position from a hungry Cloud9. They definitely will be hungry after having lost to Team Liquid, and with the fact that Team Liquid is kind of surging in and making that race for the top a little bit more interesting. These wins, all of these wins against the teams that are close to you in the standings matter even more.
Right. If C9 drops that game, they're actually fourth because Team Liquid is ahead of them in the tiebreaker. So
yeah.
It's a very scary match for them that they have to kind of hold on to their third spot against the team right above them in the standings, the Immortals, who have been looking very, very good. So
yeah, and I mean, we hit on it at the beginning of the day, but for me, the matchup that is actually most interesting here, most of the time when we look at Immortals, we're always talking about the top lane, Huni and Reignover, and how people are going to match up against them. I think in this matchup for C9 Immortals, Jensen versus Pobelter, given the fact that Jensen has been pretty dominant as a mid laner for the past year now, and Pobelter would have been pinpointed as the weak link for Immortals in the previous split. That's not to say that he wasn't good at League of Legends, but here, this split is definitely stepping up as a top-tier mid laner in the NALCS.
Similar kind of functions on their team being huge parts of the carry, and then similar champions as well. We see a ton of Victor from them and some of the other, like Azir, Vlad, a little bit of that. So it'd be very interesting to see how the champ pools develop over the course of that series and where the focus goes, because we see a lot of teams trying to focus Jensen, but he always seems to have like the moves to get out.
Is so goddamn good at dodging skill shots. It is fascinating, and one of the reasons why that makes, I guess, the matchup more interesting is the fact that recently Reignover has made visits to the mid lane. Meteos, same thing, has made visits to try and protect Jensen.
Yeah, everyone's coming for it.
Right, but everybody else is trying to get their mid laners ahead, and Reignover has made many visits to the mid lane, pre-3 minutes even during those lane swaps, and so we'll see how Cloud9 can kind of deal with that aggression towards the mid lane in this matchup. The other big one to consider that's coming out tomorrow is actually TSM versus CLG. And I know that most people would say, well, TSM's undefeated, they look dominant, and CLG for the most part hasn't looked good this split, so why would we expect a great matchup out of this one? Well, a couple reasons. One, it's TSM versus CLG. Those matchups are always exciting. It's just full of emotion, full of drive, all this kind of stuff. But then the other piece of it is that if you watch the two series that happened today between these two teams, you'd be excited. CLG and TSM
50-minute series, basically.
People. Yeah, both series finished under 60 minutes in terms of game time.
You want to make a bet?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I have to hear the bet first.
All right. Well, do you think this series will be faster or slower than the total game time of both their series today?
Both the series. So that's on 2 hours.
Yeah.
I think that the
series.
series
40.
I think it'll still be faster.
You think it'll be faster?
I think TSM is still going to 2-0 CLG.
Ooh, okay.
So that's why I think it'll be faster, because I think it'll only be 2 games. But I think that there will be closer games than, for example, what they had today.
Well, I want to agree, but I'll just have to take the opposite side.
Now you just have to take the opposite side. I like that. But let's talk about the matchup itself then, and why it may go 2 games or go 2-1. I'm not convinced off of just one series, especially against Energy, a team that's been struggling and has shown us a lot of disjointedness. That's where CLG thrives, because they can still dismantle a team that doesn't have top-tier communication. That's what happened today. They're not going to have that even option tomorrow against TSM.
That's kind of why I wanted to agree with you. I hope you take the over on that bet. But it's just because Energy made a lot of draft mistakes, I think, that gave Huhi some of his best champions. And not only will TSM not make those mistakes, but he'll be against Bjergsen, who will punish him really hard for any mistakes that he makes. So I think that, having that kind of mismatch in the mid lane, which is probably one of the most important positions this split, will be very detrimental for CLG's chances of taking that series.
Exactly. So as much as I do love to see CLG have a stellar performance today and show that maybe they will return to form and represent themselves and defend their title, I'm not sure that there's been enough evidence yet to convince me that they're really going to put up that big of a fight against TSM. Either way, we know that they're going to, take off the gloves and they're going to be swinging hard. Also, too, tomorrow, the beginning of the show, we're going to have an opportunity to talk to both Hotshot and Reginald. They'll be on the desk. That's always a fun time, getting to hear their insights about where their teams stand and the matchup and the rivalry between those two squads. Before we go, I want to mention something to you all. We're trying something new tomorrow at 11:30 Pacific before the LCS begins. Check out Facebook Live on the LUL Esports Facebook page for a live Q&A with myself and Kobe, where you guys at home can ask any question you want. We might not answer it, but we'll answer the good ones. No, I'm just kidding. Either way, for myself, Mark, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thanks for spending your Saturday with us, and we'll see you tomorrow.